Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Journey to Greatness, day 339 of 365 with David McDonald, the GOAT. All right, so we're going to get to this meditation routine. I'll see you guys on the other side. All right, welcome back. So we just finished our meditation routine, and now we're getting into our reading routine. Morning, Brennan. Good morning, brother Al. Good morning, Auntie Louisa. Good morning, everybody. All right, I'll see you guys on the other side. All right, welcome back, everybody. So we just finished our reading routine. Good morning, Amy. Top of the morning to you. Now we're going to get into our journaling routine, and I will see you guys all on the other side. Alrighty, welcome back, everybody. So we have been reading The Richest Man in Babylon. And pretty much the book is shown us a few characters in the first page, the first chapter. So the forward of the book, pretty much just to catch everybody up, is, I know I went over this once before, but I'll go over it again. Success means accomplishments as the result of our own efforts and abilities. Proper preparation is the key to our success. Our acts can be no wiser than our thoughts. Our thinking can be no wiser than our understanding. So then what happens is the book starts to describe and explain what Babylon was like. So pretty much what we're getting ready to get ourselves into is what we're about to get ourselves into is understanding the richest man in Babylon, right? And what that really means. So Babylon became the wealthiest city of the ancient world because its citizens were the richest people of their time. They appreciated the value of money. They practiced sound financial principles in acquiring money, keeping money, and making their money earn more money. They provided for themselves what we all desire, incomes for the future. Excuse me. So Babylon didn't have any monarchs who sought to conquer the known world that all the nations might pay homage to their egotism. It possessed a climate similar to that of this American city, hot and dry, Arizona. So it had a similar vibe to Arizona. And so far as is written in history goes, they were Babylonians. They were the first engineers, the first astronomers, the first mathematicians, the first financiers, and the first people to have a written language. So very sophisticated people. Similar environment to Arizona, hot and dry. Babylon was very, very wealthy, was a wealthy state because they had education and they had many engineers, smart people. The Babylonians were skilled in the arts. These included sculpture, painting, weaving, gold working, and the manufacture of metal weapons and agricultural implements. Their jewelers created the most artistic jewelry. Many samples have been recovered from the graves of its wealthy citizens, and we are now on exhibition in the leading museums in the world. At a very early period, when the rest of the world was still hacking at trees with stone-headed axes, or hunting and fighting with flint-pointed spears and arrows, the Babylonians were using spears, and arrows with metal heads. The Babylonians were clever financiers and traders. So far as we know, they were the original inventors of money as a means of exchange of promissory notes and written titles to property. Babylon was never entered by hostile armies until about 540 years before the birth of Christ. Even then, the walls were not captured. The story of the fall of Babylon is most unusual. Cyrus, one of the great conquerors of that period, intended to attack the city and hoped to take its impregnable walls. Advisors of Nabonidus, the king of Babylon, persuaded him to go forth to meet Cyrus and give him battle without waiting for the city to be besieged. In the succeeding defeat to the Babylonian army, it fled away from the city. Cyrus thereupon entered the open gates and took possession without resistance. Thereafter, the power and the prestige of the city gradually waned until, in the course of a few hundred years, it eventually abandoned, deserted left for winds and storms to level once again to that desert earth from which its grandeur had originally been built. Babylon had fallen, never to rise again, but to its civilization owes much. To the eons of time have crumbled to dust the proud walls of the temples, but the wisdom of Babylon endures. Money is the medium by which earthly success is measured. Money makes possible the enjoyment of the best the earth affords. Money is plentiful for those who understand the simple laws which govern its acquisition. Money is governed today by the same laws which controlled it when prosperous men thronged the streets of Babylon 6,000 years ago. Okay, so quite a bit going on here. Babylon obviously isn't around anymore. And once it was conquered by the conquistadors of the time, it pretty much fell apart and went back to its natural state. So, which was just desert. So then the book slowly starts to segue into the man who desired gold. And it introduces two characters, Kobe and Banseer. Kobe and Banseer. So Kobe was a musician, and Banseer was one moment. So we'll just say Banseer's designation. So Kobe and Banseer's are both. I got it. So Kobe was the musician, and Banseer was the chariot builder of Babylon. So, which was a very, very undesirable position. So starting out, they create this character Banseer as a man who, socially speaking, anyways, was looked at as somebody who was of lesser value or of lesser standard or stature because he was a chariot builder. Banseer was a musician, and they are both best friends. And so all the time, just like any of us, imagine a time when you would have, conversations with your best friends about, being rich or attaining, the best things in life, right? These imaginative conversations that you have or that you had when you were younger, pretty much like how do you become rich? How do you become wealthy? So Banseer and Kobe had these type of conversations often. And Banseer started talking about how empty his pretty much he started talking more about money and started proposing questions like why cannot we acquire silver and gold more than enough for food and robes? Consider all our sons, Banseer continued. Are they not following in the footsteps of their fathers? Need they and their families and their sons and their families live all their lives in the midst of such treasures of gold, and yet, like us, be content to banquet upon sour goat's milk and porridge? Never in all his years of friendship didst thou talk like this before, Banseer. Kobe was puzzled. So then he checks him. He says, never in all those years did I think like this before. From early dawn until darkness stopped me, I have labored to build the finest chariots any man could make, soft-heartedly hoping someday the gods will recognize my worthy deeds and bestow upon me great prosperity. So it sounds like Banseer is going through this mental transition of understanding what is true wealth, what is true worth is. And he's pretty much proposing this question like, why are we living a life that is anything less than royalty. And Kobe's taken back by this. And um, Bansier continues, I wish to own lands and cattle and to have fine robes and coin in my purse. I am willing to work for these things with all the strength in my back, with all the skill in my hands, with all the cunning in my mind. But I wish my labors to be fairly rewarded. What is the matter with us? Again, I ask you, why cannot we have our just share of good things so plentiful for those who have the gold with which to buy them? What I knew an answer, Kobe replied, no better than thou am I satisfied. My earnings from my life are quickly gone. Often must I plan a scheme that my family be not hungry. So I think this goes back to simply, like I said before, understanding your wealth, your worth, and understanding that the life that you live doesn't have to be the life that you have to continue to live. And it's the moment when you realize that, is there something more for me? Is what I'm doing actually the thing that I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life here on earth? And is it going to pay me fruitful amount of money, or is it going to reward me in a way where I no longer have to suffer or think about certain things? Whatever it may pertain to. So this day suggested, I did pass our old friend Arkad, who was actually one of the richest men in Babylon, riding in his golden chariot. This I will say, he did not look over my humble head as many in his station might consider his right. Instead, he did wave his hand, that all onlookers might see him, pay greetings, and bestow his smile of friendship upon Kobe the musician. He is claimed to be the richest man in all Babylon, Bansier mused. So Arkad is named the first richest man in Babylon. And he's not an a-hole. He's actually a really humble person who shows respect to all people. So Rich, the king, is said to seek his golden aid in affairs of treasury. So Arkad was actually one of the personal advisors of the king. So we're going to continue pushing on here. Then we get into the next chapter, which we're getting ready to finish up here. So not too much more to go. So then we get into the chapter that's named The Richest Man in Babylon. And there were certain friends of younger days who came to him and said, you, Arkad, are more fortunate than we. You have become the richest man in Babylon while we struggle for existence. You can wear the finest garments. You can enjoy the rarest foods, while we must be content if we can clothe our families in raiment that is presentable and feed them as the best we can. Yet once we are equal, we studied under the same master. It's funny. In other words, they went to the same schools together. We played in the same games, played with each other when they were younger. And in neither the studies nor the games did you outshine us. And neither in the study or growing up did Arkad outshine anyone. And in neither the study and the games you outshined us. And in the years since, you have been no more honorable citizen than we. Nor have you worked harder or more faithfully insofar as we can judge. Why, then, should a fickle fate single you out, enjoy all the good things of life, and ignore us who are equally deserving? So I think that thereupon Arkad remonstrated with them, saying, if you have not acquired more than a bare existence in the years since we were youths, it is because you have either failed to learn the laws that govern the building of wealth, or else you do not observe them. Powerful stuff, because who is to say that a person who went to college, like we all went to college, and one person makes it out or makes it better than another person, or we grew up in the same neighborhood, or we didn't go to college, whatever it may be, but we're all like pretty much on the same playing field when it comes to having the strength to work, having the ability to think. And we shouldn't look at each other from a standpoint of, oh, well, how did he or how did she attain their wealth? Or if we're all equal, how come they're benefiting from a lavish, whatever, positive life, whatever it may be? We should never look at pause. It's suggested that we should never look at other people from the light of how come them and why not us? Because if that is the question and that is your come from, chances are you aren't looking you're not observing on how to create wealth, and or you're not you have failed to learn the laws of how to build wealth. And I can tell you right now, one of the easiest ways to build wealth is through real estate. And I know that because I'm doing it myself, and I've helped so many people in the last 2.5 years also do it. And if you have $1,800 in your pocket, or you can have the mental discipline and the work ethic to work at, 1 or 2 jobs to save that money, and then leverage yourself into a position where over a year or 2 years time, you pay off all your debt, and you get ready to buy or purchase your first house. After your first house, you buy your second house. And then after you buy your second house, you buy your fourplex, which is 4 units, or maybe even a sixplex, depending on where you're purchasing at. And then boom, now you have positive cash flow. Your life has instantly changed. You have went from working a job, which we'll get into later because the book talks about it, working a job, getting paid for the hard work that you're doing, and then going out and paying other people for their creative genius, which is create milk, bread, cheese, butter, silverware, plates, clothes, education, whatever it may be. You're paying into the system rather than the system paying back to you. And so understanding the laws of how to build wealth, that simple formula of leverage is a formula that can be applied to any area that you so choose. And so in that example that I just explained, in 1 year, in 2 year, and then by your 3rd year or your 4th year's time, now you're making $25,000 to $3,000-$4,000 a month in residual income. That is close to $35,000 to $40,000 that you're making every single month, and the only thing you have to do is collect rent. And so my point here is that that's a simple law of building wealth. If you understand that, and you can put that first before having fun, you can put that first before whatever other thing that you're trying, whatever you're doing, then your life will become a lot easier because you have this cash flow that can support you, and making sure that obviously you keep balance so that you're not overextending yourself too fast as you're building your income and you're making this money. So that's one of the rules, and that's one of the ways that you can build wealth. So to continue, I would not be satisfied with the lot of a poor man. On the contrary, I would make myself a guest at this banquet of good things. Being, as you know, the son of a humble merchant, one of a large family with no hope of an inheritance, and not being endowed, as you have so frankly said, with superior powers or wisdom, I decided that if I was to achieve what I desired, time and study would be required. So time and study would be required. What are you doing today that's going to make you different than the next person next to you? What are you doing today that's going to build you to make you a better person? Those are the 2 questions you have to ask yourself every single day. And self-study is going to be one of the ways that you can build your empire, because you're diving into the mindsets, you're diving into ancient times. We're talking about a city that existed over 6,000 years ago, like before Christ, before any of this stuff was even existed. The principles that lie within this book and all the other ones that we've read that are right behind me, and that are still reading, all of these truths continue to reaffirm themselves into today's history, and in today's presence. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, I think the most important thing that the main character Bansir is doing here is he's creating a standard for himself, and he's saying, I come from a family where inheritance doesn't happen. I'm not inheriting anything from my parents. I'm having to work. And not only am I having to work, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And if I can't make my paycheck, I'm going to rob, steal, and cheat to make sure that my family can, eat